Hello, my name is Mr. Chipman, and I teach biology, AP Biology at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. This is 6.8 Solar Energy, still in Unit 6, Energy Resources and Consumption, AP Environmental Science. Here we go, looking at solar energy. There are these things called photovoltaic cells. Sounds like some sort of like fantasy artifact that you might find in a dungeon chest. A photovoltaic system. If you just look at the word, it makes sense. Light, voltage, right? So it's basically a system that converts light energy to electricity so that a home or a business or a whatever can use that electricity to do things that homes and businesses and whatevers do with electricity. You get the idea. Sometimes you'll see these are referred to as PV cells because that's what they're doing. When light strikes this semiconductor, electrons are excited and they flow through a system of electricity and they do the thing that electricity does. There can even be batteries associated with systems like this that store excess energy for later use when the sun is not shining. Obviously, they are 100% dependent upon the sun shining, right? And so that could be more or less different times of the year, and different times of the year the sun is going to be shining at different angles, right? And so that is also going to affect the amount of energy, latitude, seasons, all of that sort of thing, even regions of the earth. In some parts of the world, this sort of system is really not helpful because the light never really is efficient enough to make these worthwhile. And so typically you'll see them lower temperate zones, tropical zones, some in higher temperate zones, but not as much. This is what this picture is showing us. And also, the climate has a lot to do with it. So you see the desert southwest in the United States has a lot. No trees, very constant sunshine, and so no clouds for the most part. And so this is why those are very good areas. And you see Alaska, not as much. And then the northern areas, anywhere there's a lot of trees, obviously blocking sunlight is going to be a problem. And so, yeah, that's what you'd expect to see. A couple of different kinds of solar energy. Active solar energy is where the energy that is gathered from this solar panel is used to like move something, say like water or air, and circulate those things in order to store energy, to spin turbines or whatever in order to store energy, right? This would be considered an active system because something is actively moving in order to create that energy flow, right? These systems can provide heat energy, can supply other kinds of energy as well. They're going to have more maintenance costs because there's more moving parts, right? As opposed to a passive system, which I don't have a slide for a passive system, but you see that there on the right. A passive system doesn't have any moving parts. Rather, it just sort of collects the solar energy to use typically for heat purposes of heat. And that sort of thing, you can see there on the right, the sun is just being collected in that room. So think like a sunroom would be an example of a passive kind of system. Energy is not stored for later use, obviously going to be limited by sun directly. So what are the environmental effects of solar energy? Very low as far as there's no emissions or anything like that. As far as once you have the solar panels in place, there's not a lot of impact there. Clean energy, no gases, no pollutants. However, creating a large-scale solar farm, like is what you see here, nothing can live there, right? So it eliminates habitat, affects that ecosystem that you can see. This picture is obviously affecting that particular ecosystem. The manufacturer, I think I have a picture of this, yeah. The manufacturer of these solar cells is going to require energy, right? A lot of plastics, which is a lot of petroleum. And so even though the energy source itself doesn't require, isn't polluting, to make it does cost pollution, does cost environment, other things. And so there is some initial cost to the environment, but afterwards there is almost zero. Yeah. Here's some examples. This is a massive solar farm in the Mojave Desert, which is in the desert southwest. Supplies power to 100,000 homes, but as you can see, has affected the native scrubland of that area, right? This is not a natural formation by any stretch of the imagination. And so things that might have otherwise lived there now can no longer live there because we are gathering solar power. And again, it's the trade-off, right? Obviously, we want electricity, or it'd be different, right? Life would be different without it. And so there is a trade-off here. This is an example. I mentioned Europe as an example. In Germany, the rooftop PV program or photovoltaic program demonstrates that there are incentives, government incentives, for having this kind of power, even in regions that are less sunny than others. You can still use this to heat and power your homes and cool your homes, though cooling is less of a thing in the northern or more northern climes. So you can still use this even though the sun is not as present in Europe as it is in, say, where we're at in old western Kentucky, because of the latitude, it's the angle of the sun. Let's do a practice problem. Data set shows that the region's solar energy output increases sharply from March through June, peaks in July, declines in October, while fossil fuel electricity use follows the opposite pattern. Which conclusion best explains these trends? Solar radiation is highest in the summer, producing more photovoltaic electricity and reducing the need for fossil fuel generation. Man, I love A. I love it so much I don't even want to read the rest of them, so I'm not. A is the correct answer. It's just good. There's nothing wrong with it. If you look at the other ones, seasonal temperature changes causes PV panels to overheat. We have to create an extra part to our prompt in order for B to be correct, right? And so we don't want to add two things, even though B might be correct. There's no reason for us to derive that from the prompt and from what we read, and so we're going to go with A, which is the simplest path forward. I hope this was helpful. Leave me a comment down below if you're enjoying my AP Environmental video series. I've enjoyed making it. We're going to be continuing on as this unit has several more sections in it.